Little about me, I mean, he mentioned it there. University of Pittsburgh Dental School. I was federal agent before. I decided that I was tired of kind of playing that government game. So I was lucky to go back to dental school when I was 33. I was older than some of my instructors. But it was fun, and as you can see, there's three passions in my life. Come on. Hey Ross, how does this go? Doesn't want to come down for me. Got to ask my son here how to move this. Well, it says resume slideshow. Maybe. Anyways, how I ever got involved in the lab business was being in the dental side. I've been a CIRAC guy. I go all the way back to CIRAC 1, so you know how far back that goes. And I would be with other dentists, maybe at meetings, and I was just tired of hearing the term, just send it to the lab monkey. That just did not sit well with me, because first of all, y'all aren't monkeys. Very talented people, and I don't know if there's any dentist in here or not, but you guys and ladies make us. Doc says, oh, look at my work. It's not my work, Doc. It's the technicians. Give them some credit. So I tried to become an advocate, and I was doing it through the Sorona and did a few lectures and various things around. So I'm an advocate for getting the lab side and the docs to be on the same page and understand your value. Right now, I understand, too, the analog world is kicking a lot of butts because digital, we're here and it's move over. And it's making it a little bit, I think I'm echoing. Less echo? No, can't hear me. So that was my goal, how I got started into this. Then it segued from that to my son. I sent him to this business school, and the job offers he got, and was like, no, I didn't spend this money for this. So I allowed him to take over the lab, and he's doing a good job. He's not a technician, he's the businessman, and he hires the technicians, and it's working out. But anyways, Ross, I'm assuming I just hit the next arrow. I have two families. Ross, up here, I don't know where this is. Anyways, you can see where Ross is. That's my young family. My older family is in another slide. But I'll show you my true family. These are my older kids, and I have 6 grandkids. But my real family is here. I spend an awful lot of time with these 5 animals, and they consume a lot of the cash, and but I wouldn't be without them. You'll see a lot of pictures because I really like my dogs. But y'all are here for me to tell you a little bit about Amber Mill. And Amber Mill is a lithium disilicate. This product has been in the world since about 2008, but it wasn't marketed. It came to the United States in 2018. And I was at a lab show in Philadelphia, and there was 2 Korean fellows off into the corner. And I felt bad for them. Started talking to them, spoke very good English. In fact, Young Soo, the CEO of the company, actually went to the University of Penn. That's where he got educated. That's where the show was. So he found out, he read my tag, and it said doctor on it. He said, would you try these? Sure. The other guy showed up at my office about 2 weeks later, and here I am, their clinical director for the U.S., and Ross is pretty much the biggest distributor of amber mill blocks. This is my little house that I practice in. I'm on that floor. The lower floor is where the lab is. So I have about 7,000 square feet here. It's a pretty big building. And I'm in the middle of a cornfield in Bartow, PA. That's 50 some miles south northwest of Philadelphia. So I'm in the country. And off to the side, you can't see, there's a part of another family. There's a whole flock of peacocks. So the Haas Bio, the acronym is, the letters is an acronym. And this picture is a rendition of where their factory is in South Korea. Don't ask me the name of the town. Maybe my friend up there can tell us the name of the town, that it's there. It's got too many letters in it. But the other picture up here, this laser doesn't appear to be working, is the CEO, and the guy in the lower picture with the arc on, the little short fella, he's the mastermind of Amber Mill. He's the one that developed the concept of having one block, 4 translucencies. So I communicate with him in broken English, but we have translator on our phone, so we do okay. I give him feedback. He tells me the new stuff that's coming out, how we're going to handle it, all the feedback. At some point, I'll be bringing him back to the States, and we'll be going around. But as you all know, COVID sort of messed us up for a lot of stuff. We call it the new normal with this. As you can see, the Ambassador Award, it's something that Haas has, for those people that are involved, we have some lab techs, we have a few here in the US that use the product, and they came up with the Ambassador program. And those of us, I think there's like 4 or 5 docs, and there's probably 20 CDTs involved somewhere. It's just a little perk program, and we have some websites, and everybody that is on here posts their pictures. And it's pretty, it's kind of prestigious, not so much for me, but for those, the lab techs, they get this nice big hunk of marble, and of course you can use it for marketing, and anybody can belong in it, as long as you want to use our product and willing to post pictures and sort of talk about it. And one of the other perks is once a year you get a nice, pretty bag full, and there's usually 30 boxes of blocks in it. So I'll take 30 bucks of blocks for just posting a few pictures. Last year, your lab organization awarded us the WOW product of the year. This was posted all through LMT magazine and a couple of other ones. And that's pretty exciting, I think, for a young product. What have we been here since 18? So, in 4.5 years to get into your magazine, I think is pretty nice accolade for Haas Bio folks. Now, I won't bore you a whole lot with the minutia of the chemistry behind it, because honestly, do I know every single part of that? No. I don't need to know, and neither do you folks. But lithium and silicone are put together. If you know anything about lithium, it's a salt. Basically, a lot of it is mined in South America. And they combine, lithium is an alkali metal group, and the silicon is in the metalloid group of your periodic chart. And they make these ingots by compressing, grinding, and through something called a nucleation of some sort, it grows crystals. Anybody that really wants to sit and talk about it, we can, but I don't think anybody cares. We're interested in the product and how it works and what we can do. And the other part that is the shading is nothing but a bunch of oxides. And that's why we burn the different temperatures, because it coagulates or burns off some of the oxides to change for shading. I can't read some of my stuff on here because it's so small, but the crystal size for ours, we have nanocrystals compared to the competitor products that are out there. And through the magic of chemistry, in a little bit of heat, those crystals will coagulate. And we make that the structure. And if you take a look at the slide that's on the far right, you can see that we're much smoother than competition. And what does that smoothness do? It allows for machinability, that you could mill our blocks down to 0.3 of a millimeter on edge, put it under the microscope, and you're not going to see chipping. It's going to be completely smooth, or at least 99% smooth, just like a knife. And from a technician's point of view, I think that's pretty critical, because when you're, if you're waxing and you're waxing it on your stone stump and you take it off and you look and you see, oh wow, I got a little thing. You go back, put a little, because you want that knife edge. It's just what you all been trained for. We've taken that variable out so that you can mill it and have those knife edges. I may have some of the product milled that thin at our booth. Things tend to get lost, so they could still be there. But I do have a lot of pictures that show that knife edge. You can mill it on any wet mill, as long as the mandrel fits your mill. I personally use MCXLs and X5s, but the X5, I don't advocate using that, because it takes over an hour per, just because it's 5 axes and it's a much slower machine. The single smaller units like the MCXL, or young lady up here has an Armand, and she mills it on there via an adapter. And the time for that is I can do them in about 9 minutes. So 9 minutes versus 60 in the large machine. Yeah, sure, you got to go over and change it, but that's the give and take. But you can do a social 6, because I do them chair side as well. You can do a social 6, like if I do them chair side, in about 3 hours. I can have them in and out. 3 hours on the lab side, that's a whole different situation. But my point is that you use the faster machine, and you can end up with a really good product. All the other technical stuff, your flexural strength, your hardness, and all of this, I can tell you all those numbers, but I think if you just simply read our literature on that, you can see with the numbers, because the big number that everybody wants to know is, what's the MPa? When this is crystallized, we're about 450, give or take, compared to some of the other ones. The other ones are about 425, 430. Is 50 MPa a lot? Statistically, it's significant to mention. If you look the hardness between competition and us. So the numbers are pretty close, but I mean, the biggest thing is if you take a look at the top and the bottom, you can see on the microscopic view of all of that, the crystallization. I think somebody might have my slides out of order, but we'll see. All right, so that's just kind of the work, the work through. You select your block, you can grind it, you crystallize it. I'll go over that in another slide here, and we'll tell you all about it. You polish, you glaze, just exactly what it says. That's right there. Try-in is not something that you're going to do unless you're working in a doc's office and obviously doing chairside with him or her. It's a pretty easy product to work with. There I do show 5 of these guys in a 5-axis machine. That was put in there at the time just to show that it can be accomplished. And the peacock over there, I understand that in Texas, peacocks they're kind of like turkeys. They don't seem to be allowed to run around too much, but they're on tables. I don't know, that's what I heard last night. But I have about 17 of those at my office, so we have an aviary. But why do I use the peacock? Number one, of the beauty, but if you've ever looked at a peacock oculo, the eyes of the tail and everything, and I'll show you in a few more slides why that has become relevant. Here we go. I have to give credit to James McCaslin in Omaha. I don't know if any of you all know him. He's a dentist. He does a lot of amber mill. So the credit I'm going to have to give to him is he has I think he might have the Armin Gerbach like this young lady, but he uses the ring. You can see he did 3 veneers there. And if you read the micrometer, I can see it, not sure if y'all can. It's about 3.5. And the knife edge on these is just, it's impeccable. And I talk a lot about the machinability of this product because that's a passion, I believe, is a passion from all you technicians. And I've gotten a lot of feedback concerning that because people doubted. They're like, how can it? So I send samples out. If anybody does want to try this, if you hit up my son, wherever he's in the back, or come down to the booth, give us your name and whatever, and you have the ability to wet mill, we can get you a couple of blocks and you can try it so that you can see that the guy up here isn't just telling you. I don't know if I mentioned, but I personally have over 3,000 of them in the mouth. Have I had a couple of redos? Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a dentist. There's good days and bad days. But so every other product. So is the failure rate or anything different? I think it is. I think it's a lot less than the normal 5% failure of any product. I'm going to say I'm probably down between 1 and 2. And I always ask anybody that has a failure, send me a picture of your prep or whatnot, and it ends up that it's our fault every single time. No rounded corners. They tend to want to make a square, and you have a 90 degree. That doesn't work with glass. So I still think that the product is as close to 100% perfect in that respect. It's how the application of how I prep the tooth. I probably don't even need to ask in here. I'm going to get a good laugh. How many of you guys, ladies, have ever gotten an absolutely perfect prep from your doctor? You didn't. Yeah, that's the biggest complaint I know. Because remember, I'm wet-fingered on one floor, and then I'm down supervising his lab on another floor, so I see it all. And I'm not perfect. I don't profess to be, but I sure do step on a lot of doc toes when they call and start complaining to these young fellas that are learning the trade or doing this work. And being that I'm in that situation, I can tell the doc, your prep was just absolute crap. You want quality? Here's what you need to do. I know it's hard for you guys to do that because you lose a doc, you lost part of your income. So you sort of tolerate it. But we can go over a few things here. I can help you tell your docs. I've already taken their prep, because we still, even though we're digital at Ross's lab, we still get stone. And I'm sure everybody here gets stone, and you got to pour it. So I'll take their actual model, and I'll tell the guys when they'll hand me a model and say, how do we proceed? Where should we, to go on here? I will actually take that model a lot of times, and I'll prep that stone, have them take it back to the doc and say, now, here's what you prepped, here's what we want. Here's what we produced for you with yours, here's what we produced if you do it my way. Well, you know which way what they want at that point. They're like, push this one aside, I'll start doing it like this. Digital has made, especially if you scan, has made docs realize what they learned in school, what they've been doing all the years, doesn't fly. So I can't personally stand up here and tell you all the goods and the bads and how to do it all, but certainly if you come and visit me, I can tell you a lot of ways that you can tell the doctor this is BS and not lose them. But I don't want to have that on record. So here's some more of the scientific aspects of some things. And the funny thing is, you see this big one called biaxial flexural strength. And you can tell docs MPA, but if you use the biaxial flexural and you start doing enough, there's not one of them that can really tell you what any of that stuff means. So they read other products, and they'll see that number, or not necessarily that number, but that name, and they think they know that's something. But there's another block coming out, and why I'm picking on that particular word is because they're touting that this new block is 700 plus biaxial flexural strength. Sorry, lithium disilicate can't go that high. It's got zirconium crystals in it, and you can't mix zirconium, feldspathic, and lithium together. Sorry, I'm not a chemical engineer, but that doesn't work. But so you see our numbers so definitely all of our numbers are higher. Some of these testing have been done independent, but I have to be honest, majority have been done in-house. But then again, the competitors also do theirs in-house. So, it's us saying this and them saying that. But I do believe from all the years that I used the other company, and then in the last 4 years of using just amber, we're, don't like to use the word superior, but we're up there. This is kind of sort of self-explanatory. I mean, if you look at the heat maps that's on there, how the tolerances work when this is milled out and when you have a good prep, and the fit on these is phenomenal. When you dial it in, once you get your doc to understand that you can't do an anterior prep and give you a TP prep like this. That doesn't work with glass. But once they learn that you require about a 1.2 margin, you can do a modified shoulder kind of with this product. I don't recommend doing it, nor do I recommend using a knife edge going down, even though I told you that yes, we can get knife edges, but we get our knife edges with the other preps as well, meaning for the chipping purposes. So if you have a 90-degree prep and you have a butt joint going around, that's where I'm talking about. You're not going to get any chipping on the external or on the internal. Some docs have used, and even myself, I have used conventional prep to go down just to see if I have any issues. And it's always on a patient that I am comfortable with, and tell them, I want to try a different prep on this. I have you covered. If it breaks, you just let me know. And they're cool with it. those are probably the couple of, in that small percentage, those are the ones that I would say were the failure, because it makes a horseshoe break. Every time it's classic, it's just a half moon at the margin when you do a feather all the way down. And I think why it is that, obviously, the tooth is semi-round or kind of rounded when you prep. And right at the top of that moon is where the most pressure was from the occlusal forces, and that's where it ends up snapping that little piece. But it fits very well. I have docs calling frequently, not so much me, they call Ross, and of course it trickles down to me talking to them and telling them the parameters that they need to mill with, and I give them the rationale of what I use and why I use that. And I personally don't have any issues. Some of the old school docs I know, they're going to tell you, I want it to fit like a glove. I want to have to push it down on. That's a PFM. That's not glass. So you got to put in there. I use 80 as my spacer for the cement on the axial and the occlusals. Works very well. Good marginal, adaptation, and fits well. The smoother your prep, obviously, the better the intaglio of your product is going to be. But that is the hard part, changing your docs over. This is just a young man that is in Mexico, Enrique Lorenzo, I believe. So we sent him a few samples, and he liked it, so he ordered a bunch. And he sent this picture to me, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "All I can tell you is, do I have your permission to use this in my slide presentations in all this?" And he said, "Of course." I mean, if you look at this, I mean, that's an awesome photography, but just the way he had this laid out. So that's the reason that I have that there. These are in the uncrystallized state. I'm sure you. Female humans will walk up my sidewalk, and these guys will perform for them. Guys will walk up the sidewalk and they just squat. I don't understand how they know they're female. I really don't. I'm not getting into that. It's some of the nature. But I have a lot of photos, and people will say, "Oh, can I get pictures for them?" "You can't get pictures. Go ahead." And 7 of them are tail to tail. So there's a lot of beauty with these little guys. They're really not so little. Again, I think my slides are out of order, but you can see two of these properties: fluorescence of a natural tooth versus us in these products. How the light bounces off of these compared. Now, we did, for this slide, you can see where it says Amberville W2. That's our second lightest shade. That's kind of like your OM2 or your PL2, one of those. And bouncing the blue light off of there. So see that natural tube and ours are really, really close. Far right one is just a little bit different, but it's still kind of flat. And so that fluorescence is not that spectacular. And this is kind of pretty much the same kind of slide, except we use the W1 product. And we don't have actual layering in this, but if you look at our block, you can see what would be the sizable is more translucent as you go down through it until you get to the bottom. So you have to really look at our block just to see that. There's no way I can show you on a screen because this lighting projection screen, you can't reproduce it. But, and we can't say that we're typically graded. But if you come down by the booth, I can show you so you can believe that aspect of it. The two biggest things I it's lighter as it goes down through, is the fluorescence portion of it, and the yellow is more of the opalescence of it. And you combine those two, so when the light's refracted, you can see that it looks very, very natural. Opalescence and pearlescence is something that we talk about, and it's in all of our literature, and it's the light reflection or refraction of our product versus the natural tooth. A little more comparisons. Both of these were stainless, meaning no stain applied, and see on the far right, if you take a look at the amber mill there, can you see that the amber glow towards the bottom and the incisal edge compared to just straight up H2 another. And some more of the transmissions of light to give us those properties. And it's easiest when we to do this to show those two properties. We do use the bleach shade because obviously there's not a lot of shading within the tooth. So to get the idea of what this is all about. Is that a little better? Okay. This glow light, this picture, was sent to us from a doc. It doesn't matter where they're from. And you can see the upper and the lower. And this young girl, she had some veneers done, and the doc did some competition on one side. And they looked great, she loved them, but she broke one, so the new doc used an amber mill. This young lady goes to the clubs or clubbing. I don't really know what that's about anymore, I'm too old. But they have black lights. And she was, with what young people do, they're always selfieing. So she looked at the selfie and she called the doc the next day. She said, I was at the club and under the black light, and said, that new, or the new crown that you just put on, or the veneer, she said, is exactly what I always wanted. It's glowing. But the other ones aren't glowing. He ended up, I believe, redoing it all for so that she could get the effect. But that's the same picture. I don't know if you can see below. Gorgeous teeth. I won't take anything away from the competition, with that. But the effect of the black light coming through because of our two properties that no other block has gotten with those, the opalescence and the fluorescence. And I have no idea why I'm losing my voice because I haven't been talking. But the upper one up here too, that is, that's just a model that I had, and I put light behind it, just playing with photography, just to see how this stuff produces. So that's just kind of just some fun stuff that's right there. Can't really call this multi-chromatic. Yeah, you're seeing it, and that's what it's saying up there. I can tell you that it exists, but we can't. It's not on our box and saying that it's multi-layered. But I think you've seen a couple of them, and you can see how the gradation is just a little different. From your incisal to your cervical area. We can get 4 different translucencies out of one block, which is, from an inventory standpoint, 75% reduction. Whether it's my office or your lab, I'll take 75% reduction any day. It's all temperature dependent, and that's the uniqueness of our the second uniqueness of our product. And we get calls all the time because we want to try your product, but we don't know how to program our oven. It can be a little intimidating, a little confusing, but we FaceTimed right with people. And once I show you how to put the first parameter in, the rest of them are all the same. You're just changing your temperature from 815 to 25, 40, or 65. So you have to have space on your oven for 4. In the lab side, you're really never going to use the rapid, so I don't even recommend the labs download or try to program the rapid cycle. That's for the chair side guys that want that 15-minute. And there is a trade-off for the chair side guys that are using the 15-minute versus the full cycle. I won't lie. I can see the difference. There's a little bit more opacity. We're working trying to change those numbers, but it's really difficult because when you only got 15 minutes and you need the first 10 minutes to fully crystallize, you don't have much left just to play. Do I increase vacuum? Do I decrease it? Do I change the temperature a couple of degrees? Do I change the time? And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of blocks. Now, my friend Alan Smelt over in Barcelona has been doing it and giving me some feedback. I can share that, with that reduction in some oven time. But for the most part, they're 30 minutes full cycle. And every oven's slightly different. Some people's ovens have say a 4-inch muffle. Some have a smaller, some are a little larger. So where's the hottest part of your muffle? It certainly isn't on your table. It's up here. So I always tell everyone, try to stand stuff up. I do about 15 millimeters. I use the sticks and bring them up. More consistent heat, more consistent result. Because since we're so heat dependent, that's where you're going to get your HT, MT, and MO. And we get calls from the same thing, and we've discovered that they said, well, Doc, I used your recommendation on my oven, and I still didn't get the result. It was a little bit too opaque, and I find out that they were just laying it on the bottom. So I told them, I said, you have to raise things up a little bit for more even temperature, and bingo, they got it down. So that's that's one of the hurdles that I encounter almost on a daily basis. A few labs have called, and we've gotten them through because, like I said, it is a little confusing, and I won't disagree. And why is these are just two examples of our product in two different translucencies and two different blocks. And same translucency, I'm sorry, in two different shades. The idea was just to show consistency of going through. In my office, I have a CS3 upstairs that I use routinely. The lab's got Dikema. And is there a slight difference in the end product? A little wee bit, tiny bit, but is it anything to get excited about? No. It's just because I do this for them, and I'm critical and playing with all to find out the good, bad, and the difference. But any of the ovens, and consistent heat is the key. Just a little, it's both of our ovens, you can see. Now, the first picture that you see with all of them sitting on the Ivoclar table, and I just told you I raised them up. Those are raised, but they're only, about 8 millimeters. That muffle is not that deep compared to the Dikema. And the other thing was, until we discovered all of that, this picture was taken before I really started pushing raising them up. And the other thing is, because of heat dependent, and I think you all know that the more ceramic or even more zirconia that you put in your oven, you need to pay attention a little bit more in temperature and time, because the more product you have in there, now you've got another item that has absorbed a lot more heat. So the heat increase and decrease is going to change. So how many do I have in there? I think that's a Social 6 that's sitting up there. They were fine. I've done 8 with no problem, and I'm pretty comfortable putting 8 in at one time. I don't even think from a lab perspective that you really need to be crystallizing more than 8 of these at a time. You kind of, I don't know everybody's methods or the hows and the whys, but it's just a little something that I have learned, that 8's about the number. I apologize for sitting. Aside from being the guy that's got the only thing that he owns, it's hanging over right here. The steps didn't treat me well this morning. Don't know what happened, but there was 2 steps that they disappeared when I went down. So a couple of nice people, that they helped get me off of the floor. So I'm a little sore. These are our parameters that's up there. And again, this slide was before I have more information, and I didn't include it here. But as you can see, the basic Vita oven, and then the Ivoclar oven, the Programmat down there, standard and speed mode. So we'll focus on the standard, the upper of the two. So you can see the firing temperatures: 815, 825, 40, and 60. And it's both ovens are the same. Vacuum's pretty much the same. The end result is going to be the same. It's just 2 different ovens on how you program them. Dikema comes completely programmed. Thanks to the Germans, they've done all the work, so I just press the button and it works. So we don't play around with that Dikema oven too much. Just a shot of how I programmed this oven. I've programmed the CS3, I don't know, I think it's P5 all the way up to 16, I guess. And I just have both. I have full cycle and the fast cycle. What do I use on a daily basis? I will use the fast cycle on all my molars, second pre and back, because if it is just a hair more opaque, I'm not really worrying about it. But the interiors, I do full cycle on everything, even when I do chair side. So 15 minutes is not a killer to me. Just another shot of how to peg those up. I could probably learn more about pegging from you folks. You could show me a lot of tricks. You probably know a lot more with that. Staining and glazing. You can stain and glaze with anybody. I call them the ground earth stains. I just happen to use the Ivochlor because it's convenient. It's in the tubes. If you got powder from, like I have an Order Vita kit, and there must be 50 bottles of colored powders in there. You know, you use whatever. It doesn't really matter. I do what's called co-firing, and it's a little bit of practice, but I stain and glaze in the uncrystallized state. Then when I crystallize it, it's exactly what I want. Did I have to learn and use a lot of blocks to learn how to do that? I won't lie. I used a few till I learned that you can tell our block is transparent. So how do you start staining and glazing on something transparent and know where you are? It's a little bit of a more is not better. If you can see all of your glaze and you're like, that's exactly what I want, don't fire it. Because when it's fired, that's not what you want. Because you've done way too much glazing on it. I do kind of dry brush type, which I take these and I use the liquid. I do not use their glaze, even though you see the glaze up on the far right. I only use a little bit of the liquid to reduce the surface tension and carry I don't want to use any paste glazes. The reason I don't is it's got a lot more water than spray glaze. And I'll get a call and somebody will tell me, they'll say, yeah, I did what you told me, but I got bubbles in my glaze, or I got some pock marks, or it feels that little roughness. And I know immediately what they did. They used paste glaze, closing the clamshell or the Dikema, raising it up to do your preheat. Glaze out of the tube like that has too much water in. And if you want to continue to use it, then you need to alter your close time to allow that water to evaporate out of your glaze, because that's where you get those little pock marks and whatnot. I love this stuff. It's actually made right in my neighborhood by Keystone Industries, and it's just labeled in Danko. They're going to actually start producing this same thing, and it's going to say Amber Mill Hawes. They're going to make it for us. And they make it for a lot of other companies. Anybody that has not used a spray glaze, you need to try, and you will be surprised. You get very even, it's glassy. You can't put too much on, because you will see if you start getting runs, you know you've overdone it. You might as well wipe it off and go over. I hold it out about yay far and just spray around a little bit and let it fall on. It has a purple hue to it, and you'll see it and it'll start drying real quick, and you can see, make sure you got it all around, and then I fire them. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm staining and glazing, crystallizing all in one. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. And like I said, I use the ground dirt. I don't even know what what it's called actually, but the stuff in the bottle just looks like dirt I played with a kid. There's orange, there's green. So you can use those and just mix them up with the liquid. I mean, you could use a little bit of paste glaze when you were mixing all of that up to give you some consistency, but you need to keep it super, super thin so that you don't get that water, the bubbles forming in your glaze. If you don't like to do that and you want to stain it, fire it, and then you're like, yep, I like that, and then you want to glaze it and put it back in the oven, sure, go ahead. Because the temperature that you're going to reglaze is not going to cause our block to go to the next translucency, because your glazes are sub 800. Now, if you use one of those super high fusing glazes that is out there, well, then you might have a little bit of a problem. But the Indenko, I'm pretty certain on the back it's 765 or 865 maybe. So even though our one block, the MO, it fires at 860, you can still use this glaze and not worry about it. That 5 degrees for the length of time that it's in there does not do any changes. Again, anybody you want to know a little bit more about that, you can stop by and I'll explain a little bit more with that staining, how I do it. We have a few samples down there. Some of them my friend Alan, again in Barcelona, did because they're left over from the Chicago show. One person in here, we had a conversation and she has a little foreign background and we got a good laugh. All the ones that Alan did look like nicotine stained teeth. But that's what his population is, and he wouldn't think of doing anything other. Gorgeous, but they're nicotine stained. And we got a good laugh out of that. But here in the States, I don't think we do that. You can, the other unique thing about us, you can get those 4 translucencies out of the one. Suppose you fired it at the HT, and you have the luxury of working, say, chairside with your dock. If you're in that situation, you run it up, and you put it in, and it's like, oh, Doc, that's a little too transparent. I'm seeing that amalgam stain that's deep in that dentin or that real dark dentin. It's not doing the tooth real justice. You can go back and fire that and go to the next level. You only need a couple of minutes to increase the temperature for a couple of minutes. You can go from HT to MT to LT to MO. But once you get to MO, don't think you can go back to HT. It doesn't happen. You can go up the stairs, but you can't go down. And that's pretty unique. Again, that's what, number 4 uniqueness. This is just talking about the going from the HT to the LT. I'm not sure. I know my computer screen, it's kind of hard. I'm assuming that you can't see a lot of difference there because of all this lighting. But we made an HT and then went over to the LT to show how the progression can go. My go-to is MT. Probably out of that 3,000 plus, 2,500, 2,700 maybe was MT. It just works. Inlays, onlays, I go HT. It just does that chameleon, just pulls it in, and it just melts into the tooth. Provided you use a you know, don't do an A1 and then your doc cements it in with an A3 Unisem or Panavi or something. Well, yeah, you've just lost a little bit. But if you use your translucent bonding materials, there's no issue. Nothing real exciting on this slide other than discussing that you can go up the line. I think I have to give this slide credit to probably James McClassen again. He seems to have a lot of time to play and do some things, so he made these up for us. And it's just simply showing the 4 the translucencies of how we representative of our product by 4. Not sure again if y'all can really see it really, really well there. What sizes do we have? We just started recently. We came back out and we're offering the 12 block. There's no price difference between a 12 and a 14. So most people don't even ask for a 12. I'm not sure why Haas decided to offer a 12, because all of our software back in the day, like even as much as maybe 7-8 years ago, the software, because I used the OmniCam, PrimeScan, whichever, it would actually sprue it all the way at the mandrel. So you were cutting all of half of your block away before you started your tooth. But then they got smart and said, why are we doing that? And they moved it all to the coronal end of the block. So it immediately starts cutting your sprue. So you end up having a half a block that you're throwing out, but you're saving on diamonds. So that's why I only stock 14. We probably sell 99% 14s. There are some labs that buy the 40s. The 32 and 40 we sell for the same price. If you want to play a little bit and learn how to nest, that can even be very economical, because you can get, if you really sprue and pay attention, you can get 4, maybe 5 premolars on a 40 block. If they're pretty consistent in size, and that cuts your cost down even further, because we call them the bridge blocks. The 32 and 40s come in a 3-pack, but they're not 3 times what a pack of 5 is. It ends up being, I don't know, Ross would know the numbers, but the math works in your favor. But yeah, you got to spend a few minutes and learn how to nest them onto there in your CAM software. Armin Mirzayan, some of you may know who he is, California, he took one of these blocks this last week, and he took a 14 and he took 4 number 23s and put it in a 14 block, and he nested them around. And the joke with the whole thing was like, yeah, Armin, you took a $25 block. How many hours did you spend doing it? Just joking. And he said, well, I only wanted to show that it could be done, but he said, no, I would never do this a chair side, because it took a little bit of time. But in a 14 block, he got 4 number 23s. And he sprued them all on the lingual, because he turned them and he put the sprue in the middle, with the exception of one where it went to the mandrel. And he wouldn't tell us how long it took him. But it was just, a photo opportunity. We can get 76 shades. We go from A1 all the way up to the W's. The W's are our bleach shade. We have a good number of docs and labs here in Texas that we sell to. They're loving this W2. I'll show a few pictures of some of the W2. It is pretty nice, but I think a lot of times the shades, your B1 and your W2s are regional. All the accounts on the West Coast, as soon as he gets an automatic order, he'll say, oh, got an order from LA. We don't even look at it. We just know it's B1. All B1. It's like, come on, there are other shades. Why don't you make them natural? People out there don't want. This group down here in Texas, one has an office not too far from right here, and everybody wants the W2. That's what his practice, that's what they want. So we have the whole spectrum that's on there. So you take that times you get the 4 translucency. So we end up with, I did my math right, 76 or 78. So we covered the whole. Now I know I'm going to get the question is, you all saw that 98 millimeter puck. When that came out, my tongue was dragging. I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome. Saw the block, started to use it, and because I get prototypes to use, they decided that block, we're just going to use it for a picture. It's not practical, because you can get, well, maybe 25 crowns out of that puck, maybe more, and you can put it in your other software or your other mills like the IMS core, and there's another one that actually it's certified in. But the problem is, do you have 2 days to wait for your 25 restorations? Because it does not mill, unlike zirconium. You know, when we mill zirconium, if we have a lot of similars, our CAM software will go in with our 2.5 millimeter, and it'll hog 5 of the intaglios out before it switches. And then it'll start decorating. Not when you're doing glass with the software. It completes one, completes the second one, completes the other one. So you start adding that up, those 25, that's a day and a half of milling. God knows how many diamonds, because it does every one singly, and it takes an hour when you put them in the ring. So Haas decided that let's wait till there's newer technology before we continue to do that. So we can't even get you that if you ask. It's good just to show for a nice picture at this point. It's not practical. This little guy, again, I can't understand how my slides got out, but this is a light. Some of you may have seen it and some not. Hooks onto any phone, and it's color corrected. It runs on batteries. And when you take the picture of your patients, being color corrected, you never, when stuff is sent to you folks, you almost never get a mistake, because being color corrected. I'll show you again, if you come down to the booth, I can take a picture of your own mouth with it on, with it off, and you'll immediately see what we're talking about. We do it in ours, and we buy these for the top Crown and Bridge offices. Just give it to them. It's a $200 item. You said, you're my top client. How about you start taking a picture and send to me for every case with the shade tab so that we're never off? And it works very well, because what you can do, say like with the Dakima or the newest Ivoclar oven, I believe you can do it as well. They can send you a picture and put it in any file, a phone, however you would accept it. You can put this right on your screen, like our Dakima. We can actually take that picture and put it right on the Dakima. So the technician is sitting there, staining, glazing, doing whatever, and he's got that picture color corrected right there. It can be real time. If you really want, you can do this real time, meaning you can FaceTime with a patient sitting in a chair. If Doc holds a light like this and holds it and FaceTimes you, and you can, is that practical? No, but it can be done if you have the oven that you can take these pictures and put right in. And we've given these to the majority of our top accounts. And once you use it, it's like, where the hell has this thing been? We know we have that we sell this for the least price anywhere, because Haas makes it #1, and we haven't found anywhere on the internet anywhere that comes close to the $200 mark. But it's just a nice little toy that saves, because I mean, like Ross says to everybody, 2 redos in most cases paid for that. You're going to reduce those, with a little training to your docs. And we all know that those tooth-shaped tooth tabs, I still can't figure out why they were made in the form of a tooth, because it's irrelevant. It should have just been a little block of some sort. And then, when people take pictures, they don't send you a picture holding the tooth in the same orientation on top of the tooth, and you're getting 2 different perspectives of lighting. So you got to teach, I'm sure you all know that, teach your doc horizontal at your incisal edge with that. Now you're plane to plane. Color corrected and plane to plane, you don't make mistakes. It's all but impossible. And of course, unless somebody's shining another kind of a light and you don't see it and it's being reflected, of course. But in the normal course of just taking some pictures, it's an awesome piece of equipment for a couple of bucks. Other thing you need to do with this product, in any glass, docs need to know how to do the preps, and I think I already reiterated a little bit that's there. Any of my slides, if you want, at the end will be all of our contact. I'll share any of this stuff if you want, like this, and you can look at it and get it to your doc and say, this is really what I want to prep. And give them some incentive to why they want to do that. And once they do, they'll appreciate it. Like I said, I'm digital, so I really don't know what it is to take an impression. Have I done it? Of course. But I see both from my side, because two things that I do in my practice is I use a microscope for every single thing. I don't believe in loops. I have vertigo, and when I first got into business, I'm wearing loops, and I'm looking down, and then every time I look up, I'm thinking, where's the trash can? I said, something's not right. So I got microscopes hanging off my ceiling, and it doesn't bother me. So I do every single thing, from an occlusal prep to surgery. Taking a root tip out, I don't know how the hell a surgeon can get down in and start playing in root tip, because I'm under a microscope and I'm finding that little, but I see all the little idios, and I prep with diamonds only. That's the other key. And I know you guys can tell every doc what kind of burr they use by looking at their prep. 90% of what you're getting is probably carbide tips. And if you go through and you use the diamond and show them, that's how, because every doc, their big thing is margins, Well, yeah, it's okay, but it's adhesive dentistry, folks. You can have a little bit off on a margin, and the bonding is going to cover you. Now, I'm not saying huge, but you got little discrepancies, and it's going to be covered. But they all want that. So if you show them that the margin that they are looking for, they're not giving you, this is what you want, you can get it across, and you have to not be afraid to tell doc. Yeah, I'm a little different. You see, I don't even own a sport coat, so I'm here in a polo. You come to my office in the summertime, it's a t-shirt, sandals, and shorts. I don't own a set of scrubs. I don't own blue jeans. This is dressed up to me. It's way more than I even want. But so pretty unpretentious. So don't worry, because doc has a suit on that you can't confront them and tell them exactly how. Because they will appreciate it if you really there, and the chances of them going somewhere else, they might get pissed and try one or two, and then they're right back at you, because they know when they send that stuff off to the corporate lab and it goes across on the boat and it comes back and all this. Sorry, it's not happening. And being that it's a modelless world, I don't know how many of you guys pour stone and make removable dies, and you do all of that. We have one account, and we just got it this week, and he's even a younger guy, called Ross up and said, oh, it's a no-go. And his girls are on the other phone, and they're saying, Ross, it is a go. It's perfect. It's exactly. Well, the guy wanted a pinned model. He wanted to check his margins. I should have taken a picture and showed you all what the margins were like. This guy was worrying about his margins. I'm sorry, I can't polish crap. I'm sorry. I mean, they were up, down. Margin, it was here, and then it was down here, and it was over there. Where do you want me, doc? Do you want me to take it to your gingival sulcus? You're going to have a lip over there, and you're going to be up here halfway. What do you want? Well, this guy wanted us to make a pin die. I don't know what the hell's a pin die. I haven't done that in dental school. Maybe people still do. I'm probably going to get in trouble. A lot of you people maybe do it, but there's other ways. But this guy, he wanted to, so he could look at his margins. So I've kind of trained Ross into pardon the expression, tell it where the bear shit in the buckwheat. Don't get away with it, because all the other docs in his office are fine. They're like, yeah, we know this is. But to keep the account, we'll 3D print and we'll give him the dye. But we're going to invite him to the lab, and he's going to meet this guy. If I lose him, I lose him. I mean, how many crowns is this guy going to do in a year? I don't know. We have plenty of other things that we can move on to, because the other guys in the practice said they're staying. They said, we're happy. Price is right. You're 15 minutes away from us. You deliver. They're happy. So if we lose the big guy, the other guy, I'm not worried about it. But I think once he sees that so-called pin dye that he's looking for and realizes that what his preps are like, I'll take him upstairs and show him under the microscope. I'll say, here, I magnified this 48 times, and you're worried about your margin, and you want us to put a pin on so that you can check it? Come on, go blow smoke somewhere else, buddy. It's not happening. But like I said, if anybody wants that, I mean, this can be found on our site at husbioamerica.com. Most of all the emails or requests go there. They get sent over to me anyways. But if you want to know what this, this is. Some of this might be a little boring. Some of this is my bread and butter work on a daily basis. Is everything 100% perfect in what you'll see? No. Patients are happy. They're functioning. It's just me criticizing my own work, where I should have had a little bit on that, cervical, maybe just to make it a little bit. Nah, I didn't care, because this patient, I believe, this is a 60-year-old. If you take a look and they're worried about something, there's some teeth that's got amalgams in there that's shining black through. You got some areas where you sort of forget to brush, so you've got 3 days worth of plaque on there. Am I worried that the value of that tooth is off ever so slightly and I should have put a little cervical? No. I got my money and moved on. And there's plenty of others in the same patient's mouth. They're content. Same thing, kind of here, just showing a prep via my prime scan. I have all of them. Most of the scanners. This is my favorite because I can do soft tissue with great accuracy. But, it's just there just to show kind of what I do on a daily basis. I advocate both of these for bonding. Can you use glass ionomer on glass? Yes, you can. But you got to have more of a PFM type of prep where you need some retention. Do you really want retention in glass? You can take that PFM and you can start pushing pretty hard. And I know my predecessor used to take a bite stick, put the PFM on and tell the patient bite down. No, you're not doing that with my glass. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. Once it's bonded on, well, that's a different story. But try to push it down, it's not made for that. So these are my two go-tos for amber mills. I use the other Panavia right now, the SB, so I don't have to use the blue and white bottle, because the SB's got it all. And we use the SB in our lab as well for doing bonding bases to titanium abutments and a few other things, because it works really well. Basically, everything is bonded, no cementing. Some people call cementing bonding, but obviously there's two completely different definitions and what you need. And this is not really on your end, except when you're going to be doing something, like your implant work and, screw retained crowns and so on, where you're putting a tie base. But I use the SB Panavia for that. And again, so does our lab. And it works quite well. The SB also works in zirconium, because I know all of you guys are producing, well, most of you are probably producing zirconium And the SB works really well because it's already got the MDP in, and you don't need to do anything for your dentist. Like, does anybody like silinate for them and say and tell them, oh, I silinated for it? You can just bond. I guess at one time we used to do it from the lab industry. We used to do that for docs, but you don't need to now, because if they're using that, like say the Panavia SB, you don't need to do anything. They just need to try it in, and they just make sure they clean all the the schmutz out of it, the saliva and whatnot. But there's no reason to condition anything again. So that's my go-to, and there's some other ones, but the reason the Panavia SB is because it's got the MDP already incorporated. You don't have 2 steps. What can we do with amber, the amber mills? This is actually amber mill bonded onto PEEK. I didn't do it, it's not my work. This came to me from the corporate. One of the Korean dentists did this. That's pretty darn nice. And is it going to is the bond going to work very well? Yeah. Again, as long as you follow that perfect protocol for Trilor, PEEK, Chavora, which is once you get it cleaned out of the mill, put the white gloves on and don't ever touch it with a bare hand or any place that you're going to bond. Because when you do, that's your failure. That's where the tooth is going to come off. Is any place that your fingers with oil touched. This was actually an all-on. I didn't show the intaglio though. Somewhere my bread and butter, you can kind of see where it is. This one's probably a little bit better when I did on the cervical. Could I have gotten a little bit more on the body of number 30 there, or 5? What number? I put number 30, but that sure isn't number 30, sorry. You can see, but from my perspective, bread and butter dentistry, this is what it is. I'm not gonna get in there. Anterior, different story, but your basic premolars and back. Patients want function, and you've heard this story before where a doc makes a molar so pretty and he stains up and he put, stained down the grooves, and the patient looked in and the first thing they said is, what the hell is that black stuff in my new tooth? Talk about knocking the blocks out from under doc. Yeah, patients don't want, they want a white tooth. Give them the damn white tooth and be on their way. Aesthetics in the anterior 6 and or 8 up on the upper, a different story. No, I'm not going to just produce anything and put that up there, unless they just want Hollywood white, no characterization. They want 8 chiclets going across. I'll grind you 8 chiclets and I'll bond them on, and that neon light, you're going to go out there. But the only people that want that are the 70-year-olds. Please. I have one on my phone I would share with you. She was 70. She's, I'm going to go to hell, but she was twice my size. Not a real pretty lady, sorry. And she wanted the whitest I could do. I put white teeth on her, 14 of them. Then she put bright red lipstick on. She came to the office and she said, okay, now take my picture. I took her picture, but I closed my eyes. I'm like, oh God. She loves it. She said, my husband's never been happier. I won't go on because she gets on nitrous and I hear all kinds of stuff. But her husband's really happy now because of that. Okay. This is just a picture of the Coca-Lux. You can see it's the same person. You can see the difference when you use a color corrected versus just taking a picture. Both pictures are good, but there's definitely a difference there. And I'm not sure even what teeth I did on there. I'm thinking 5, 6, maybe, I don't know. Again, some bread and butter dentistry. The patient wanted something and you gave them what they wanted, and Of course, you can see one's a little more square, well, that's what they wanted. Okay, after I put it in, oh, I love it, but you know what? You need to make the other one on the other side like that now. So it was a win-win for me because I got 2 crowns out of it. You give them what they want. I'm just in a little different situation, obviously. I'm, at chair side and doing things. You're at the mercy of the docs. I understand all of that. Same thing, patient on here. I just mirrored number 8 for 9. And I said, okay, that's about as close as we're going to get without doing a whole lot on there. And looked up at me and said, and this was, what's this patient? I don't know, 40, 50, it doesn't matter. Looked at it and said, no, you're doing number 8. Can you stay longer? Well, of course. Because I already knew that. And I already had the machine geared up. It was already loaded, so all I had to do was prep that and scan it real quick. And it was done. So 15 minutes later, put it in. I said, this is what you like. Crystallize it and did it all. Yeah. But did I take a final when I did that? No, because I needed to go for the day. And afterwards, I'm like, what the hell? I needed that picture for the photo book. But the wildness of all this after 25 years of doing this smile makeover stuff doesn't trick my trigger like it used to. So I feel guilty that I should be taking more pictures, but I don't have any young staff that are into that. I only have older staff my age at this point, and they're good at what they do, but they're like, okay, let's take care of them. That looks great. Okay, let's go to the next one that make you look great. And I say, we need to take some pictures, and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do it next time. So I'm on the downside of my career, so I don't need to do too much wowing. Again, bread and butter. This was a 70-year-old. It has to be the man, 70 years old. I don't have the gender on there, but then again, in today's world, we're not allowed to use gender. So this person just did, no stain, just glazed and right out of. Kind of the same, just to showing the prep that's in there. Nothing real exciting. Nothing super exciting there. I think, what did we do? We did those 3, and there's an implant coming, I believe, for number 7 at some point. These are from, I don't know, last year maybe. I may have finished them, I don't know. This was an older patient as well. Same thing, don't even know. I guess the point here is I used a Coca-Lux on one picture and not on another. This was a pro bono case that I did. You can see in this picture, this number, or what is this, 24? It's function, but it's dark. Her and her husband are pretty good patients, very compliant, do whatever I ask them to do, or tell them to do, I shouldn't say ask. And I wondered why I hadn't seen her for a little bit. Well, she had just completed chemo. She said, I don't like this tooth. What can we do? So obviously, you know what I did. I gave her a tooth and said, looks good, do you like it? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, be on your way. She endured, I think, I'm not sure if it was breast cancer or ovarian. It was one of those ones, so sure, I gave her a tooth. I didn't. And that picture that on the far right was taken immediately post-bonding. So is it a little higher in value than, say, 24? Yeah, probably. But then if you go over and you look at 25, 26, 27, she has a museum in there. So there's 40-watt bulbs, there's 60s, there's a couple of 100s, there's some that don't even have a bulb in. So was I worried about it? No. Just a potpourri. Don't have a whole lot. We can do some questions soon, but one of the things that my Korean friends like to do is eat. And they're not here with me at this point, at this show, but they do 2 things. They make a good product, they're dedicated people. They like to eat and they love to drink and they all smoke. He's friends with my crew up here. And we go to shows and whatnot. And before we even get to the show, they already send me the list of the restaurants that we're going to. Okay, we'll go. Here we are, and we're in Chicago. My son gets introduced to the group, and because they are from Korea, things are traditional. I happen to be the old man in the group. So I'm the so-called patriarch. So I get served. Everything starts with me and then goes downhill. So Ross was the youngest, so he's the last one to get served. But the center picture is Mr. Kim teaching Ross Korean customs of when you see Ross is holding the glass with two hands. Correct me, okay? Mr. Kim takes the bottle and it's one. But when Ross reciprocates, Ross has to hold the bottle with two hands and Mr. Kim holds the cup with one. It's kind of there. So we learn all these customs. Am I correct? Yes. And the bottom picture, I don't even know what this stuff is. I can do about this much. I'm not a drinker. I do about this much and I've had enough. It's vodka in a beer bottle and sojo, and what's the other one? But what's the other? It doesn't matter. They mix the two together, and that's what you drink. That's probably about the fourth or fifth round of bottles within the first 45 minutes of being there. Now, these are not beer bottles this way. These are 24-ounce bottles. And there's like 5 of us there, and they're doing that. It's like, wow. And the food, it just keeps coming. We go to, I don't know if anybody's been to the Korean barbecues, but these guys, what they do is, obviously they all speak the same language. I don't know what they're ordering, I'm just eating. And they get 5 cuts of beef. You have to have pork. And they look at you. You want chicken, right? No, I don't want chicken. You want chicken. Whenever they just point and say, you just, yeah. So you have all this meat. And you take toothpicks and floss with you because you're constantly pulling from all the beef, the pork, chicken, some kind of fish, plus all the vegetables. And it's like nonstop. Cereal World 19, Ross and I flew in like Tuesday morning. Tried to not meet my friends. They found us. We're having lunch. 1 o'clock, so we go to the noodle place and we're eating lunch. Show's over at 6 o'clock. I'm still stuffed from lunch. See you tomorrow. Oh, no. You don't see me tomorrow. You see me and they give us the address. You be there. We go to another damn barbecue like this. How much food can I eat? And we start all over again. Super people, the Koreans are great. I obviously got a pretty good connection with them. They want me to come to Korea. I hate flying anymore. I dreaded the trip yesterday from Philly to here because I looked at the map and it was storming from Virginia right over the flight path all the way to Alabama. And yeah, it did. The plane was all over the place. In the first 30 minutes, they came around. Some big guys sit in the front of the bus, so we still get a drink of water. She was coming around to give us water. And immediately the pilot came on, and he didn't say anything. He just said, "Flight attendant, sit down now." Click. I'm like, oh, shit. 2.5 hours, that plane was up, down, over. He's sleeping. I'm sitting there trying to sleep. I have vertigo. You know, when plane tilts all around in vertigo, you feel every little bit. It's like, come on, Dallas, get here. I got to get off this plane. So I don't want to go to Korea. That's a 12-hour flight. Just a little here, you can see, that's a pretty nice, that came from one of the Korean docs. It's just a nice little photo. It's one of the other things we do, aside from, I do this amber mill and I use it and we lecture on it and all the above. This is our lab, All Digital Dental Design Studio. The little acronym's what we follow, SPEED for digital dentistry, and it's exactly what it is: scan, plan, execute, aesthetics, and deliver. That's what y'all do. This is exactly what we do. So I've trademarked that. Is that going to help from somebody taking it? No, but I have. I don't own the lab, Ross does, but I supervise it for him, and then all cases come and he questions, and if they have so I do all the implant planning. And why I'm bringing it to your attention is you can still do all of your work, but if you get a case and the doc sends you the cone beam and wants a little bit of help, you ship it over to us electronically. I'll do the whole shoot and match, send it back, you get with your doc, or I've already team viewed with your docs as the in-between, designed and got them to sign it off. You get the STL files if you're going to print, you're going to grind, you're going to do whatever. So what I'm saying is I do a lot of planning for other labs because you're getting the doc to do it. Is that really a big deal? Sort of, kind of, no. But I'm trained in it, and we're willing to do it at a fair price, you know, and it's there so that you can get more, so you can offer some more, and you're just outsourcing part of it to the design for us. We don't even have to do your prosthetic design, just basically for your surgical guide and all of this. I did a unique surgical guide for a surgeon just the other day, Wisconsin. He sent his cone beam. I printed off the whole lower jaw. Lesion was in the mandible right above the mental foramen. And he knew if he flapped, he really needed to guard that mental foramen. And he was playing around trying to figure out, and I said, this is really easy. Printed off his mandible. I made him a true surgical guide, not for implants. Put it on, team viewed with him, and I cut the window out the side, and I kept asking him, do you want me to go a little mesial, distal, you know, and he was guiding me where he wanted, and when I got to there, I stopped, and I said, is this what you want? He said, that's exactly what I want. I cut him a window where the lesion was. I knew where the lesion was because of the cone beam, and in one of my programs, I can isolate that lesion. And we made him this guide. And so he could just take his burr, line it up on that square, because he was going to cut the bone out anyways, and then he would put it back. So he had a perfect, he took the lesion out and never had to worry about that mental foramen, because the nerve exit, you know, obviously, I think you all know, it exits right there and then it goes around to the front. And that was his big worry. But just little things like that. And we don't beat the pants off you, it's lab to lab. I mean, I'm not out to make tons of money off of this stuff. I just love the digital. I do it 7 days a week. And I think you saw, I have 3 passions: dogs, dentistry, and more dogs. So I sit with my dogs around me. I have standard poodles, and if you know anything about those, they're like Velcro. So they're all there with me. I'm playing. We have a lot of accounts worldwide. One of them's in Kenya, Africa, and so that they're what, 12, 13, 14 hours difference. So that doc hops on. So sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll know that I need to be awake, and I'll hop on with team view. It's just kind of fun. But call me the nerd, but I think that's what I'll be doing in my retirement. Instead of wet finger, I'm going to sit and play digital. Little something that can be done. You can see we can 3D print that whole skull. You can do it, all of that stuff that's in there. The picture over here is the world's smallest denture. I can put 3 or 4 of those on a penny, and they are Fonaire's teeth, and that is actually a patient's denture. No, that doesn't go in the mouth, but it's just to show that you can do something. We took a patient's denture and put it into one of my programs and just shrunk it down 80%, and we printed it. So we printed a couple hundred of those, and it took all the 10 minutes to print them. And then, as my one tech had some time, he did a little optoglaze pink on there. Most of these were sold to the dollhouse industry, because I did the ratio of what dollhouse furniture is to get that, and the one person that used to work for me built dollhouses. So she sold them on her dollhouse site. And it's pretty interesting. You look in and then, they have a little piece of furniture in their dollhouse and they have an actual denture. Grandma took her denture out and put it on it was just there. It was just something. We own Carbon's one of our printers. Only reason why do I own a Carbon? I don't own it, I rent it. Because of the Lucitone 199, and it's the only one that you can use that on. And then our other one is the Hay gears that we do our ortho models and stuff on, and there's a whole series of those. Downstairs you have Envision Tech, awesome piece of equipment. It will be in our office, or the lab soon, because the technology for Carbon was developed by Envision Tech. It's kind of, this is what my understanding is, that's why we can't own Carbons. We can only rent Carbons because of a patent infringement. But anyways, that's what we have. We have a 3D printing center. We do this stuff. And again, it's all lab to lab prices. And it's something that Ross does, and he's gotten a lot of accounts. We print out the denture base, send it back, and then you guys can put your own teeth in. It's a little bit more than if you did the whole thing. What's the worst part of doing a denture? Packing it, right? It's done. All you're doing is you're fusing the teeth on of your choice. You just fuse them right in there, polish it, and it's be on your way. You don't have no packing, you don't have any stone, you don't have any of that stuff. We have several accounts, and we can't figure this one out. They own a printer in this one lab, but they send all the stuff because they want us to print it with Carbon. We print the base, send it back to them, and they load them up with Vita teeth, the digital teeth. They send the design to us, and we just print. But we can also do the design and do the full print. It's a whole new concept. For those of you that want to go digital, but you don't want to spring for all the dollars, or there's numerous reasons. It's just something that's there. Just a couple pictures. The blue kind of one there is part of our learning center. We got in our lab, there's a dedicated area where we have 12 learning stations. And we've had different speakers, some Sirona people. Trey Chambers from upstairs this morning. He's been to my place, and I have to admit, Trey trained me in lab a number of years ago. And then I took off. There was a deal that was made that I put this in from one of the major companies that y'all don't like no more because they don't sell acrylic and stuff. Anyways, I made the expense to do all of that, and then they reneged on their end of the deal. But we still have that, and we bring classes in, even like around our area, bring them in and just show them what digital is all about. Let them play with it on the machines, because if the staff can see how it's all done, they can convince Doc to do more. So it's just it's our learning center, and like I said, there's 12 stations loaded up within lab, and there's some 3-shape blue sky. There's numerous ones. This just happens to be one of the trainers that comes to my place, David Turpin's from Michigan, and that's kind of what we do. We call it the digital connection, and I do Zoom with some offices just to kind of show this again, the staff that can't come because of the digital world. That doesn't mean you have to fly to Bartow, Pennsylvania, or wherever. We can do all kinds of things. That's all of our info, and here's something I want you all to leave with, and you may have all heard this before. Fear creates paralysis, and I know some in here are analog and partial digital, or they're all analog and they want to go digital, and they're there. And it's true because you're afraid, which is the fear, And yes, it creates a paralysis. The paralysis is meaning you just sit there and stagnate and you keep doing the same thing over and over. And you're frustrated. I'm packing dentures. Why am I packing dentures? Because that's all I know. I'm afraid to do something different. Don't be afraid. Continue packing your dentures. But our place, and there's other ones too, send your file. If you have the ability to scan, or if your doc scans, send it. Let us do something for you. Again, not just me, but any of the digital world. And try it. Keep packing your denture, but try that other. You eventually will start walking. You won't be paralyzed anymore. Get rid of that fear factor. That's with all of it. I'll say that about my block. Don't be afraid to use it. Try it. We'll get you a sample. I'm not going to give you a whole box full, but we're going to give you a couple blocks and you can try it. You just have to tell Ross and put it on the list, and we'll get them out for you. And shoot me with anything. Just whatever you want to know. If you don't want to answer in the public forum, again, come and or answer, ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm about as unpretentious as it comes. Although Ross's mother will say, you're very unapproachable, I can't even talk to you. But I said, after 26 or 7 years with you, it's no wonder. But I'm not that way with anybody else. So, you can email, you can call. One of us gets back to you. Even if I talk all day, even when I'm with patients, we'll get a phone call and Ross will come upstairs and say, Dad, I have so-and-so on here. They need to know what about their oven, or just other things too, even printing, whatever. Just because I'm working on them, a patient doesn't mean I can't be talking and answer and give you real-time answers and whatnot. And that's something that happens frequently with docs. They'll say, I have somebody in the chair now, I need to know how to do this, that. And of course, I'll talk to them, because my patients know that this is what I do. So they have no problem. So I'm kind of done with what I got. I don't know what time but I think everybody probably wants to go do something different. So, all right, thanks, folks.